All right, everybody. Portugal overcomes all odds and triumphs on a balmy Sunday in Munich. Hello and welcome to Semi-Informed Football. This is a Nations League final recap where Portugal overcomes Spain. My name is Marko, and I'm also here with Mark. Mark, hey, how's it going?
Good.
And Matteo.
Pretty good. Not too.
Yeah. Okay, so Portugal triumphs over Spain. Nobody saw that one. Well, you know what? I would say the numbers were more for Spain on this. The betting lines and everything like that. But Portugal hung in there and they won it in extra time in a shootout. Amazing game. Now, what did you think about that, Mark? Like, what was it an exciting end to, sort of like a slow build-up within the Nations League?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm going to start by saying I'm not a fan of the Nations League to begin with.
Okay.
But given the teams that were in the semis, I think it did make it exciting. Like leading into the finals here, having that France-Spain game, just a bunch of sensational players on the field. Yamal and Dembele both up for Ballon d'Or. Spain won 5-4. Now they're in the finals here. And another great storyline with Yamal and Ronaldo. I think as much as I don't like this tournament, given all the storylines, it made for an interesting final.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So the whole point of Nations League was for UEFA to come in and group teams of similar, ilk with the same teams. So get rid of all these friendlies. Like, I don't know why I always pick on these two teams, but Spain and Monaco, like, we don't need to see these games happen. Spain and San Marino, France and I don't know what we don't need to see this. So what they did is they got rid of a lot of these friendlies and they put them together. And whereas a bit before, I think there's a lot of people that asked me, and even maybe I was even confused because the question came in so much was that, does this give them a buy into bigger competitions like the World Cup qualifying or for the Euro qualifying? It doesn't. However, it does give them better seeding when they're getting into these qualifying competitions. So aside from
it does keep the coefficient.
Yeah. No, the coefficient guy. I think we got to do another episode just on what makes up this coefficient and how it ends up working, because it is really, really mathematical and really, really technical and really kind of comes down to so many different things. But I think it's going to be a little bit more reading on my end. So that's pretty interesting. So anyway, so Group A1. So I'm going to take a look at how the teams got there. So we were looking at the Group A. Right. And the top teams out of there were actually going to qualify for, I guess, to win this. Now, in Group A1, we had Portugal, which narrowly kind of outdid Croatia. They came out with 14 points, which was very respectful. 4 wins, 2 draws, with Croatia at 8, who also made it into the competition. But Portugal, I felt like, had a very steady team throughout this. There may have been a little bit of kind of drama, I think, with Ronaldo. Should he still be in the team? Should he not? Should he be starting? Should he be not? But anyways, that's how we ended up going through things. A lot of teams came through here. France, Germany, and you know what? We even take a look at Spain. Spain were taking really, really top points in Group A4 with 16 points, a little bit more, and coming out with Denmark. But honestly, pretty interesting, because if you did take a look at this at these groupings, that a lot of the really, really strong teams were there, and we were getting rid of a lot of the kind of weaker football itself. So I don't know. This one was challenging for me. Like, what do you think? Like, again, I know, Matteo, I'm going to throw this one out at you. Like, I know that you're a little bit more aligned to La Liga, and I don't know what Spain was doing on the way here. Now, what do you think about the team you saw, at least in the last few days? Like, we do mention that, we talked about this offline, that there was a whole lot of football this year. If you throw in Champions League, you take a look at sort of World Cup qualification, you take a look at even just the regular league games. There's a lot of stuff happening here. Now, do you think that with Spain, did they bring their A team? Were there a lot of people not making it, or not actually 100% for this? Like, what do you think their route was?
I think Spain especially, they're missing quite a few guys, I felt, at least in their back line. In my opinion, they were not going full strength. as opposed to other nations like Portugal or Germany per se. But even then, I think most teams were keen to rotate and try new players because, like we said, this is not a major competition. It's more so like a dress rehearsal. That's what I think it is. So I think for me, notable players that didn't play in the Spanish squad were guys, like Cubarsí in Barcelona, Inigo Martinez, Rodri coming back from injury. A whole bunch of players in defense, especially, was the main talking points. But I think overall, not everyone was dropped. Like, Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal. The big names did play, but it wasn't a full force squad, if you know what I mean.
Fair enough. And I think that was fair from the kind of the final four there as well. But looking at that, you did mention defense. And if anybody saw a few days ago in the semifinal, Spain took on France, and everybody thought this was going to be just kind of a meeting of giants. And when you take a look at that score, you're like, what happened? It was a 5-4 win by Spain over France. And nobody expected that's such a high scoring game. But when you look...
Well, I sort of did. I wouldn't say 5-4, but I would have picked something like a 4-3. Yeah, Marko, there's just so much firepower there between those two squads. Like, really, look at the names that were on those sheets for both sides, and look at the amount of goals and assists they've put up all year.
Yeah.
So, and especially coming off the Champions League final, a bunch of those players who are on the France team. I just expected another high scoring shootout. I didn't expect them to throw a shutout, obviously.
Yeah.
Because Spain's got tons of talented players who can pot the ball in the net.
Yeah. I when I take a look at that, and again, my comment was when Matteo brought up defense, is that I felt that France really negged with respect to defense, because if you take a look at the highlights from that game, they did have their chance with offense. Whether it was like Dembele hitting a post or whatever it was, like it didn't seem like the score actually matched up. But I did think they made a few defensive blunders. Rabiot even costing a penalty. So that was one game where it was exciting as anything to watch, right down to the final double whistle. Right, it was just unreal. So if we're going to take a look at the other game, which was Portugal over Germany, is that something, Mark, that you can comment on?
Yeah. I was looking at the German lineup and going through it, and I still think that obviously they're in the top four.
Yeah.
Okay. They've got a bunch of talented players, but they don't have that top tier team like a France or like a Spain, or even obviously like a Portugal, right? Florian Wirtz might be up and coming, but if they're having to rely on Nicholas Füllkrug, I'm sorry, but that's not on par with the other three teams.
Right. I think that's fair. That I took a look at that as well. Like, they seem to have a whole lot of missing pieces rather than what happened with their best and everything like that. And it's especially funny. I almost kind of laid you up there. Like, if you want to talk some what's it called, some volleyball analogy for the Florian Wirtz stuff. I knew you were going to jump on that as well. He scored the opening goal in that match, and
his overall play has been sensational.
Yeah. No. And it's true. So if anything, for the Premier League fans watching, they had a little bit of a taste, and it looks like that's going to be kind of finalized in the next little bit. I don't know. That seats like the longest drama of
hopefully
transfer I've ever seen.
And that's what I said earlier. I didn't want to count my chickens before they're hatched. And it kind of like, I know we're not talking transfer talk, but last year we saw so many teams come in and steal at the last second.
Yeah.
And that looks like what is happening with Zubimendi. It was supposed to be done to Arsenal. Now it looks like Madrid is going to make a big push.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So I did mention it earlier before that, like, Nations League, has it... So I'm going to throw this one to Matteo. Matteo, has Nations League at all sort of like elevated European football? Like, have you seen a different from, I threw out that maybe, there were some kind of meaningless games between like some sharks and some minnows. Like, what is your take on that?
I think, yeah, from that perspective, replacing the friendlies with this league, which is basically what it is a no-brainer, because everyone wants to see a close matchup, a France-Spain, a big hitter game, as opposed to seeing Luxembourg versus Germany. But I don't think it's improved the overall play, maybe increased competitiveness, as, everyone's going for some sort of title, no matter the merit. But I personally wouldn't have implemented it if I had the choice way back when. Just due to the sheer fact that there's so much volume with the games.
Right.
And tying back to my original point with the lineups and injuries and all that, there's still a whole competition a few weeks away, next week in the Club World Cup. So I think it's just a packed schedule. That didn't really raise the level of play to answer your question, but at least provided us as neutrals with a lot of reputation, with a lot of big money games.
I understand the idea of not seeing a France versus Luxembourg from maybe the French perspective or even the neutral perspective. But teams like Luxembourg or other teams maybe closer in caliber, they need these games against bigger teams to sort of improve their game as well. And I think it actually hurts European football if the minnows end up playing each other all the time. You think no one's going to watch France Luxembourg? Who's going to watch Liechtenstein Luxembourg?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And how does that improve their game?
Yeah. So I get that. And sorry to cut you off, but what I feel with that is that there are different tiers to the Nations League. And as you start getting better within your tier, you can get promoted to the next one. Right. And that's why. So if you're a Luxembourg that's slowly getting better and beating up on teams like, say, Liechtenstein, I think is actually a pretty decent challenge as well. But you can kind of get up into the next pop. So you can go to from a group C to a group B, right? And if that ends up being too strong for you, you come right back down. But I feel like it kind of keeps like teams with like teams, and it gives you kind of that push to want to move to the next pot in order to kind of play, the best of the best, and then, and also.
But under that logic, Canada, for example, wouldn't have played France in the lead up to the World Cup. Okay, that was a friendly game.
Right.
But these friendlies are actually important if you're trying to improve. You want to play the bigger teams. And let's face it, France is top 3, if not top 5, somewhere there.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. You're right. And I think separating into leagues, similar to club football, back when the whole Super League idea is proposed, it is a big separation in caliber, which is a good point from you, Mark. But I mean, realistically, let's face it, it's international football with no real meaning. I still wouldn't find this or classify this as a major tournament. So it's just rehearsals, loading periods until the next Euro World Cup.
UEFA wanted to get this tournament in before the Club World Cup because it was UEFA money versus FIFA money.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, which is sad, but it comes down to, how can we kind of make as many players, or what's that breaking point before players say no, enough's enough, right? So, but then again, that's the point where you see that you look at the lineups on some of these teams that have played in these these last 4 games, and they may not have been the same as the games that you'll see these teams play for actually World Cup qualification.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take a look at this, and you know what? I'm gonna throw this one back to Matteo. So, Spain's prep for the World Cup. Now, if you can kind of mention, I guess within the scope of that, this Nations League game, what you saw there, and also other things that you think right now. Like, what do you think about their prep for the World Cup, and where can they improve? What players are they going to be happy to get back, or what players are they going to be happy to kind of develop on the way?
Good question. You know what? I thought one key thing that remained and will be ever present from this Spanish squad to the World Cup is their offense. It's phenomenal. It's been the same way even from past Euros. Lamine Yamal on the right, Nico Williams left is a fantastic partnership that we can see at the national level. The one glaring weakness, though, in the offense is the lack of a true number 9.
Yeah.
Before is Morata, and with him, inconsistency is ingrained in his DNA.
Right.
But even though
is
consistently inconsistent, yes. But even now, they're trying alternatives with Oyarzabal, who, I mean, to be fair, did score a goal and did his part, but that isn't someone as the caliber of a previous generation striker like a David Villa. So I think that's one key thing they're missing. And they did try to give a new striker the chance with Samu coming on the semifinals, this big striker from Portugal. But I think that's one thing that'll stay present. The back line was a different thing, where they're experimenting a different back four, where I thought even in the final they changed Pedro Porro out for Oscar Mingueza. The center back pairing of Lenormand and Huijsen, which was surprising to me. I think one of the two will be remaining come the major tournaments.
Right.
But them two together, ahead of players who were on fire, and young as well, like Kubarsi, was questionable. But then again, tying in fatigue and injury possibility, and I can see why he did that. One thing that I do have question marks over regarding Spain is the midfield. I don't see, or I can't see quite yet, how they're going to be at a competitive level because of the main man Rodri not playing in this whole tournament. Not his own fault, but when you have Fabian Ruiz, Zubimendi, and Pedri, they are a really good midfield. It makes you wonder how much better or how would Rodri even tie into that. So I do want to see how that happens going forward.
Is Danny Olmo not in the midfield?
He's not even playing currently. Off the bench, he's there, but I don't think he played many games. Didn't appear in the final. And if he were to play, I'd assume it'd be a false nine. But yeah, that's a lot of question marks for me for Spain. But I do think they're capable of a lot more.
Yeah. Mark, what about Portugal? Like, what do you know about that team? I know I've followed quite a bit of what Portugal is, but same thing is like within the scope of this game, does this kind of boost their confidence for the World Cup? What else are they looking towards? With respect to kind of their tactical approach, but with respect to their team selection as they look to qualify for this World Cup.
I think this actually serves as a great precursor for the World Cup for Portugal. We've often talked about how Portugal is really a hotbed for new talent, right, some really skilled talent. I think what they really needed to do was find a way to continue that youth movement while still integrating Ronaldo in an ever-evolving role. He's not going to come off the bench. Let's be clear about that, okay? He's not a guy who's ever going to accept playing for club or country off the bench, which is fine. And the guy's talented. He's super fit. But his role has to evolve, has to change, because no matter how well he takes care of himself, he is a year older and he's a step slower.
Right.
Now, I do think they have a great cast of characters around him. This team isn't just Ronaldo. Portugal has a bunch of talent. You got Silva, you got Neto, Vitinha, Fernandes, Mendes, Diaz, Joao Neves. Off the bench, you probably got Semedo and Jota, Paulinha, Leao, Gonzalo Ramos.
Yeah.
Hey, we can go on. These guys are all talented.
Right.
And a lot of these guys play in top leagues. Obviously off the top of my head, Vitinha, how great he was in the Champions League run.
Unreal.
So I thought that this was a fantastic precursor for Portugal for the World Cup. And it's really showing their quality. Like, to me, I think they really jumped a lot of spots, and they can't be taken lightly in the World Cup.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I think Matteo and I were talking offline before the podcast started how Nuno Mendes is turning into like probably one of the premier left backs in all of Europe, right? And he had a monster game today, scoring a goal, setting up another. And actually, I think, and he even potted one in the penalty kicks too. Again, unreal player. And honestly, because my son a lot of the time plays that left back position, like I always kind of feel a little bit interested in how players develop into that, because it's not how we could say it's not the sexiest position out there, but it is quite important because you could really kind of boost the attack from that, just speedily go down that flank. But I agree with you. Like, how many of those players were on this PSG winning team? At least 4 or 5. That is unreal. And even if you take a look at the lineup, the players that are actually even starting on the bench, whether it is a Jota, whether it is a Gonzalo Ramos,
Yeah.
right? Like Semedo, like they had a lot of players. So I feel like, they.
And so sorry to interrupt you, but I think for me, when I look at this overall cast of characters on Portugal, and we know Portugal has won the Euros and they went far and deep in other tournaments, but I actually think that this is one of the most talented squads I've seen Portugal field.
Yeah. And but how many times do we have to say that every 2 years or so? Because it looks like they're just getting better and better and better. And maybe it's a time where they actually kind of make that leap as well, right? They've already won a Euro. This has actually been their third major trophy. So they're the first team to win a second Nations League. Like, again, I know it is relatively a newer competition. However, this is their third, in addition to a Euro win. On top of it, like another thing, like I said, I was talking to Matteo, and I knew you mentioned as well, is Ronaldo. How does he factor in? Ronaldo's 40 years old. He did pot of gold today, so he does show that he has some value. But you have to be able to work with that and know that, you know what, there is going to be a time that he's going to have to come off, right? Like, can he last the full 90 minutes? No.
And so I think he's come to that realization.
Yeah.
That he'll play the 60, 70. Obviously, he wants to play 80 minutes at least.
Yeah.
He's come to that realization, but he's got to start. And if I'm telling you that all these players around him are actually better than previous Portuguese teams, it almost makes his position fit better.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do as much. And the kind of service he's going to get from this quality, just let him do his thing.
Fair enough. And I think, if anything, Roberto Martinez is that coach to actually play.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like other coaches in the past who have almost kind of had Ronaldo as a secondary coach. Kind of making the calls as to when he's going to come on, when he's going to come off. So I think that, honestly, accepting his role, accepting that, you are 40 years old. And again, you're not that speedy winger anymore. However, you can add value at that striker position. I really do think that, that's going to be better for the team. And if you could actually just take a look at Ronaldo's face, when he was on the bench, when they scored that last penalty kick, like, he was elated, right? So I think right now, like, he again, you hear a lot about what they say about Ronaldo, about wanting to still pot another, get up to 1,000 goals. When he still has a lot more in him. Like, does he have 2 more years in him? I think he does. But again, I think he has to be at least from a national viewpoint, national team. I think he said, I think he's going to find a way how he can kind of add value here still, but not be, I guess, the focal point of the whole team.
Yeah, and so it's coming to light now that he tweaked something in the warm-ups. So he was playing injured.
Yeah.
Played through it as much as he could, scored the goal. But yeah, in previous times when Portugal didn't do well, coach, I forgot who the previous coach was who wanted to sort of bring him off the bench.
Yeah.
Because of who he is, even some of the old Portuguese fans, I felt like everyone was turning on him.
Yeah.
Right. And come on, this guy's been like up there with Messi for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
He's not going to fade that fast.
Yeah.
Like I said, he also keeps himself in incredible shape. Now, I'm not saying that this is exactly the same, but when I see this Portuguese squad and the way they're evolving, it reminds me of Spain. Spain had, since the 70s and 80s, these teams that could never win the World Cup. Okay. In 82,
they hosted it
against the Italians. Yeah. Couldn't get it done. Okay. They could never win in 94 or in 98, 2002. And they were slow, but they've always been like a hotbed of soccer and a bunch of talented players.
Right.
And then eventually, with a very talented squad, Xavi, Iniesta, they broke through that mold and they won the World Cup.
Yeah.
And they've been, continuing on that trajectory ever since. Spain's definitely a top 5 team in the world.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but that's what I see with this Portuguese team and where they've come from. A lot of people thought that the Euro that they won was a fluke. I hardly disagree. I meant I highly disagree. I don't believe it's a fluke. I just think that Portuguese soccer keeps getting better and better, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Matteo,
Would you consider them genuine World Cup contenders then? Because the analogy between them and Spain, we know that happened.
I think you would have to. You would have to. Right now, I'd say the top teams in the world would have to be Argentina, France, Spain, Portugal, not necessarily in that order. But those are the 4 teams that I would say you'd have to give high odds to winning the World Cup. Brazil's not there right now.
That's true.
Brazil's not the Brazil of old. Maybe they'll get back there one day, but they're not in the conversation with those 4 teams.
We'll see. But I think the whole point of this tournament, like we said from the very start, is a nice precursor to the World Cup to build speculation and hype for it. So the fact that we're talking about this now shows that it did its job. Because prior to this, I don't think any of us have considered Portugal not favorites, but as big contenders as we would now, post-final. So I think you can point with that. The key obviously being balancing veteran experience with Ronaldo, with the youth talent of Portugal, which they have an abundance of. Rafael Leao off the bench is a joke. But yeah, I think you got to spot on with that.
Yeah. Good stuff, guys. Okay, I think we're going to be wrapping it up today. So listeners, thank you so much for listening in. Subscribe to the podcast on wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple, whether it's Amazon, wherever you listen to it. So going forward, I guess we have a World Cup. Right now, as we're recording, this is Sunday, June 8th. I think that teams can still sign players till June 10th and still be still get into this tournament, which kind of makes it a little bit odd, maybe a little bit dicey for me. So anyways,
well, let me throw this at you. Maybe we could do a live podcast from Miami if you still want tickets.
Yeah.
The ticket fiasco has been unbelievable. Have you guys heard the ticket fiasco?
No, tell us about it.
All right, with this dynamic pricing. So the opening game is on Saturday between Inter Miami and Al Ahly from
CJ. Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's from Egypt.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, all your stuff. And originally the tickets were selling for $230. The stadium holds 65,000 seats. The rumors are they've only sold 20,000 tickets.
Wow.
So I know that they were dropping the prices to $55. Rumor has it that if that's not going to do the trick, they'll lower it to $20. Because for the opening match for this grandiose new FIFA Club World Cup, they need a packed house.
Yeah. So next time, we're keeping you
semi-informed.